Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 126. Today is an episode with myself and Pete, who's waving now. I'll introduce him to you in a second. Paul is busy sorting out his new studio, recently acquired studio in London. So it's the two of us having a little bit of a breather episode after a run of guests, this year with Becky Fuller. Talking about over 50s fitness and saga, that sort of thing. We've had Brooks Cubic on. We've had Dave Whitley, the Iron Tamer. And now we're going to do an episode, just the two of us, and just kind of have a little chat and maybe a little review of what we've been doing. It is Friday, the 27th of January now. So if you're listening while the episode comes out, we're right at the end of January. I am due to go off snowboarding tomorrow with the Unique Results party, the Unique Results team. So snowboarding. So we're going to maybe do a little review of what we've been doing and what we've been working on since the start of 2023. So for the first month of the year. So first of all, Mr. Peter Lant, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing very well. I hope everyone else is as well, because if anyone has had a rubbish January, James has just rubbed your face right in it, hasn't he? Oh, I'm off snowboarding this weekend, by the way. Anyway,
well, just hopefully,
hopefully everyone has had a good January. January's just January. I say this all the time. It's just because of the way it's darker at night and all that sort of stuff. But it is what it is, isn't it?
I think
January doesn't.
Yeah, it gets to the end of you because, well, for me, to be honest, Christmas and New Year are not like big. They're certainly not big sort of party seasons now like they used to be, So yeah. It's very much just a kind of bit of a low key kind of family affair. So, but I know a lot of people have a big they have a big blowout, don't they, in kind of Christmas and New Year, and then January they hit a bit of a downer, because like you say, because it's cold, it's dark, it's wet. Most people have spent too much money, in December. So they're, everything's a bit tight in January and it's a little bit grim, but not for me, really.
No, not for you, because you get to go snowboarding. But I quite like it because it's like people talk about New Year and new beginning and all that sort of stuff, but it's just a chance to reflect and you need a chunk time to be able to set goals and decide where you're going to be each quarter and all that sort of stuff. But you can do that at any point. It doesn't need to be at the beginning of January as well. You can do it in June if you want, because otherwise you end up waiting, don't you? So yeah, it's just so that I mean, I did all that last year, and been working on what I wrote down and what I've been working on for this year already. So it's brilliant.
And I remember seeing a few weeks back, obviously at the start of the year. I know you, as always, we'll talk about it probably quite a lot today. There's something I'm doing with my members, like a 60-day consistency challenge, just to try and get people to. We mentioned before we came on air, it's more about behavior change and habits and lifestyle and that sort of thing. So it's just taking small daily actions that you can be consistent with that are going to help you towards your kind of bigger goals, I suppose. But I know you've been training consistently as always, and I remember seeing as we came into the kind of the new year that I don't think you trained on January the 1st because it was a Sunday, and you said, well, I don't train on a Sunday normally, so I'm not going to train. My training doesn't change. It follows the pattern, and a lot of people kind of they sort of start January with a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to feeling maybe overindulged and overstuffed and overdrank over the Christmas period, and think they're going to make some massive 180 kind of change. And you and I both know that that tends to last a few days, and then people relapse if they try and make these massive sweeping changes to their whole life, you know?
I've got, it's funny because I did a video the other day. I've got a private group on Facebook, and I do once a week, every Wednesday I do videos in it. And I was talking about consistency actually, and I was traveling the Wednesday before Christmas and then the Wednesday after Christmas because we were way up in Newcastle for a week. Whitley Bay, we were in Whitley Bay actually. It was great. Walked out of our front door, which was a basement flat. We had the whole flat, Airbnb. Sean sorted it out in like April last year. It was great. She's great at that sort of stuff. and we just walked out the front door, turned left, and there was the beach, and it was fantastic. It was amazing. And like sunrise in Newcastle in December is 8:30 in the morning, so we didn't have to get up or anything. But I did. My videos are like 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, and we were in the car at 11 o'clock on Wednesday morning. But I still did my live video in the group from the car, just to show consistency. But the training, because I train on Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. I had to train Monday, Tuesday, travel on Wednesday, then train Friday, and then do. I think I did Monday, Thursday, Friday the week after, and I was knackered because doing 2 days in a row was pretty tiring. I think I had a cold at the time as well. That was like lingering around and stuff like that. So I was just like, oh, it was horrible. But then immediately the week after, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, back to normal. Everything was fine again. So it was great. But the video that I did the other day, there's a guy who commented. There's a guy who's been like been having a back and forward with him on Messenger and stuff like that, and he's been commenting on my stuff, and then he came into the group and all of that sort of stuff. And he's mentioned this podcast actually. He said, like, you know, things that Dan John said on this, he took on board, and some of the training that we've talked about and everything. It was brilliant. So he's listening to this. His name's Craig. So hello, Craig, if you're listening. But I did a half an hour chat just about behavior change, basically. And that was in Facebook. He commented on a post on Instagram saying, oh, that was a great chat you did earlier. A great video you did earlier. And I was like, all right, thank you. What was your biggest takeaway? And it was something that I didn't even plan on saying, right? I had it all like laid out what I was going to say. It was about half an hour. I didn't even plan on saying this. And this was his biggest takeaway. So what I'd said was exactly what you just said there was you know, you've got your lifestyle, however it is. And then people try and say, right, I want to get in shape. I want to lose weight. I want to be a better mother, father, have better relationships, have more time with the kids, all of that, all in one go, which takes a lifestyle overhaul, doesn't it? So, which is a nightmare because you've got to learn new skills and you've got to learn new behaviors all the while you're doing all the things that you usually do anyway. So you're just setting yourself up for disaster, right? Some people can do it. A very, very, very small percentage of people can do it. And we'll find that out next week, actually, won't we? But that's not everyone. So what I'd actually said was just starting out small new habits, and integrating them into your current lifestyle. So if you've got 3 minutes to spare in your current lifestyle, that's what you've integrated into. And then what happens after a while is when you start to realize that this thing helps benefit your energy or your stress levels, or it does improve your relationship and your fitness and all this sort of stuff, you increase that. And then what happens is gradually over time, it's like you were talking about with the levers, gradually over time. So you've inserted this tiny new thing into your lifestyle, and so it fits into your lifestyle, but then your lifestyle starts to change around that thing. And then eventually you come to some sort of harmony. Mike Kukowski, who was on the podcast ages ago, and I'm in a group with him, and he talked about on his podcast, the Strength Connection podcast, was having harmony instead of balance. Because when you've got balance, you're never actually still. You're moving around all the time to hold yourself where you are, which is fine. But if you can find harmony where everything's moving along quite smoothly, that's what you can try to do with your lifestyle. So instead of a lifestyle overhaul, you start slowly, and then your lifestyle starts to mold around the things that you want to be able to do. And the slow process of that gives you more chance of winning. And that's what I didn't say that exactly when I was talking, because it would have taken half an hour to say that, like it just has now. But that was this guy's biggest takeaway, and I was like, brilliant. I didn't even think that. Well, I knew it was a thing, but I hadn't planned on saying that. It just came up in the video, you know.
No, that's great, isn't it? I think that's what I've been trying to get across to my guys as well, is that so the first thing I did was I just put a kind of the feelers out just for people who are already members of Unique Results, and said, look, I'm going to be doing this 60-day consistency challenge, and I don't want to be kind of ramming it down people's throats and stuff. If people are happy where they are and they feel like they're on top of things, and so I kind of said, ask people to just kind of say if they want to come into this separate group, you know. So out of about 130 people, I've got 50 in this group, you know. So it's about 40% probably of the members.
That's really good.
Yeah, so I've got 50 in there, and then I did a few videos, and the first video was kind of think of a focus or a theme that you know something, you know, for a focus for the next 60 days, yeah. And it was just very broad. And then the next thing that I asked people to do was to think of one daily behavior or practice or something that they're going to commit to do for the next 7 days, but just one small thing. And I kind of reiterated that, you know, make it like an easy win. Don't make it something really difficult. We want something that, you know, you're fairly confident you can do for these 7 days. So, you know, so you don't kind of fall at the first hurdle. And then they kind of worked on those things for the first 7 days. And it's everything, you know, it's little things like, you know, to drink a certain amount of water each day, or to do like a 10-minute meditation each day for 7 days, or, you know, to make sure you hit a certain number of steps each day or go be in bed by a certain time, or someone put, you know, not to watch any TV in bed for the next 7 days. And, you know, these little things that kind of tie in towards the bigger picture. And I think that's so, it's just making these little things stick. And it does remind me of the, trying to think who it was now. It was Mark Lewis, actually. I think it was Mark Lewis who we had on kind of over Christmas time, who said, you know, if you've got good habits and no goals, you know, you're kind of moving in a good direction anyway. But if you've got goals and you've got no good habits, then you're kind of fighting a losing battle from the start, you know. So I think it's just so important. And I did one of these groups a couple of years ago, and one of the things that I'd set myself was to always be in bed by 10:30 in the evening at night. I mean, that's late for me now. I mean, it gradually became...
I was going to say that's I would struggle with that because I wouldn't be able to stay awake.
Yeah, no. Well, to begin with, it was like 10:30.
Yeah.
Because again, it was kind of like an easy win, but it was kind of a moderate goal. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't super early, but it wasn't super late. It was kind of like but then that gradually, I haven't officially changed that, but then it kind of became more like, well, I'm actually in bed before 10 most of the time. And now it's probably more like 9:30, you know, and I think that just really has helped with my sleep. You know, just reverse engineering. I know that I get up most mornings, I'm up sort of between 5 and 5:30. So to get a good 7 to 8 hours sleep, I need to be in bed really, you know, kind of 9:30, something like that. And then even if I'm waking up at 5 and I don't get to sleep till 10, I'm still getting 7 hours. You know, that's my kind of minimum.
I do very similar. I'm in bed by 10. But I like read a book or something like that. But I'm only reading for like 10, 15 minutes and my eyes are on the way. That actually helps me relax and sleep.
Yeah.
And actually, what I do is use a Kindle as well. Because I always used to think like the blue light and all that sort of stuff. And apparently the backlight on a Kindle is okay. It's not blue light. Well, you know, everything's blue light, but it's not as bad as like phones and stuff like that. Apparently it's more like a page. But the reason why I do that is because I can read my book in the dark. Because if I've got my side light on, there's more chance of being like, if I read for longer actually when the light's on. So I turn that side light off and I'm there and I read for literally about 10 minutes. It takes me, the book I'm reading in bed takes me months
Yeah, because you literally read like 2 to 4 pages a night kind of thing.
Yeah, and then I've forgotten the last page because I'm half asleep, but it's great. And then I'm just out. And then I get up at 6 a.m. So most days. So that's like, you know, a good 8 hours in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's excellent. No, that's really good. No, so it's been good. And I've been doing my my cold tubs and stuff and my hot tubs and
I saw that with Steph in the background going like, what an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. Yeah, she does think that. But yeah, no, I do a couple of those kind of videos, which is good. But no, it's been a good start to the year. And I think that's the thing. It's just trying to, I mean, training now for me is kind of dialed in. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, you've got that you do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I mean, I mine is still a 6-day a week program. So it's
is it dialed in because you've got a coach though?
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah.
Mine is as well. It's like, well, I could not do it and nobody would ever know. But Paul's not going to let me get away with that.
Yeah. And when I say dialed in, I don't mean that it's still effortless and and I want to do it every day, because I don't. You know, it's kind of just, I just listened to, there's a 4-hour podcast that I've just finished with. It's an Andrew Huberman Lab podcast with Jocko Willink. Yeah. Have you heard that one?
I haven't been listening to the Huberman ones. I love them, but like it's a lot of effort. And I don't drive. Like, you know, you drive in between play, and I don't, and I don't have pods like when I'm out and about and stuff like that. So no, I haven't. Sorry.
Oh no, but I've just listened to that. But it does take me. It's taking me probably a week to listen to, because all I do is I listen to podcasts when I'm driving in the car. So, and sometimes it'll be just 10 minutes, but I'll get a 10-minute chunk, or sometimes it'll be half an hour. So I listen when I'm driving, and once a week probably I shave my head, you know. So I always, and then that's, you know, like we've had this discussion before, I think, about NET or NETT, no extra time tasks, you know, or when you're habit stacking or whatever. So when I'm driving, I listen to podcasts. And then when I'm shaving my head in the bathroom, I have my phone on the windowsill and I listen to a podcast. And that takes me about, 20 minutes or so. So they're the chunks of time that I listen to podcasts. So this 4-hour podcast, like I say, taking me about a week. But I got a huge amount from that, because on lots of different levels, Jocko talks a lot about leadership and different things in different domains, which is, and Andrew Huberman's really good with it. But there was one part in that where, I mean, for people who don't follow Jocko Willink or whatever, and we talked about him a little bit with Mark Lewis, but he always posts this picture of his watch, doesn't he, every morning? Do you follow him? Yeah. And it's like 4:30 in the morning, and it's like, aftermath, hashtag, getting it done. And he just gets up and he trains in the morning. And I think Andrew Huberman sort of asked him about, how do you kind of do that? Like, how are you so consistent to do this every day? And it's for those who aren't familiar, it's kind of a thing. One of his mantras is, discipline equals freedom. And it's actually more about discipline than motivation. And we spoke about this before. But one of the things he says is, when my alarm goes off in the morning, I don't allow myself to have a conversation with myself where I get into this kind of, like this internal debate that we all have, which is like, oh, do I feel like training today? Should I get up? Oh, I probably need an extra hour in bed. I could just stay here, blah, blah, blah. He said he doesn't engage in this conversation with himself. He says he's just got that level of discipline where the alarm goes off, I get up and I go and train. I don't think about it. I don't ask myself if I feel like training, if I'm motivated to train. I just get up and I do it. And that's really helped me, because I do go through, and I know many of the listeners will, and I know many of my members, and I'm sure you do as well, because you've spoke about it before. You almost have this internal dialogue of, you've got to do training, but you kind of try and, do I put it off till later? Do I need to do something else first? Do I feel like it? Maybe I could do with an extra rest day. You kind of try and talk yourself out of it almost.
Right. I've got loads written down here, by the way. Specifically, a couple of things specifically about the Mark Lewis podcast, but I'll talk about that in a second. Well, number one, when I went through my branding stuff with POM, I've actually got consistency creates freedom as one of my statements, because my whole thing was move towards freedom. So consistency creates freedom. It was as simple as that. And it's discipline, consistency, whatever you want to call it. I'm not saying I'm Jocko, but that's one of the things that came up for me, because consistency is what it's all about. But the thing about the internal dialogue, he doesn't have those conversations when he gets up. I do, but I change the story. So maybe that's what he does, or he doesn't even need to do that anymore. But I write it down, I journal. I ask myself a question every morning. And people go, what questions do you ask yourself? I'm like, whatever comes up that morning when I get up. Do I feel tired? Do I feel achy? I very rarely feel achy, but how do I feel physically, emotionally, mentally? Whatever shows up. Or why am I feeling great today? I'll journal about it. But what I do is I start a journal about it. So this is part of the process I go through the guys in the Move Towards Freedom group that I've got. And I start answering the question, and then things start to show up. And that's where I get all my Facebook, all my content comes from this stuff. And then if it's kind of a non-self-serving story that's going to stop you doing the things that are going to get you towards your goals, or have a good day that day, or whatever, you just change the story. And you do that via the process. You don't just go, do you know what, I'm going to do the opposite. You just write down, I'm feeling bad today. Why is that? Well, I had a rubbish night's sleep, so therefore today's going to be crap, blah, 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 blah. And then you come down and then you go, actually, but what's the opposite? What is the opposite of that? Well, if I do say that, I'm going to have a rubbish day. I'm thinking about that already. So if I can start to flip that script and then go, well, do you know what? If I don't do a session today, then it is going to be, I am going to feel like that. So therefore, but what could happen is I go and try and do a session. I'm not able to do it all, but at least I gave it a try. Then that's a win. Or it'll go well. That's a win. And then just go through that process. And then what you get is how you're feeling, but then how you actually want to feel that day. And then you get like a to-do list of 3 things of intentions for the day. And then it's in, so this is what did I talk about it on here? Intentions and review, review. And instead of doing it yearly, do it every day. Review the day before, through journaling or whatever, and then write down your intentions for today out of that, and then do those today, and then review it again tomorrow. And then you're going through a positive process, a positive daily process. And over Christmas, it was funny, I was talking to my guys in the group about this, because over Christmas I took my journal with me, but I didn't do it. I did it once. I missed a couple of days, and then I was like, do you know what? I'm not going to journal for 2 weeks and see what happens. Just to see what happens. And I felt, I wasn't sleeping as well. I felt like a low level of anxiety that I couldn't explain. And there was nothing wrong. I was just like, I'm not getting my thoughts out of my head. So therefore, these things are creeping up. I still got my training done and all of that. It just maybe it's got pushed back a little bit. So it was an interesting little, I talked to the guys about it in the group, and another one of the guys hadn't done anything, and he said something similar. But another one of the guys had journaled all the way through Christmas, and he said he'd had a better Christmas than he usually does, because he usually gets really stressed because he's got to go and see his family, and he gets stressed when he goes and sees his family and all that. And actually, when he turned up to see his family, all of the same stresses and everything was still there, as in nothing was different to what usually happens.
Yeah, nothing external was any different.
Yeah. The whole world was the same. He just showed up differently, and he said it was much better because he didn't react to a lot of stuff. So he was much. He wrote down 2 words. He wrote down love and compassion. He was like, I'm going to go home, because his family are in the Midlands and he lives down here, and he was driving home. So he journaled before, said, I'm going to go home with love and compassion. And he wrote it down, and then he was kind of thinking about it all the way there when he got stuck in the traffic jam and all that and things. And then when they got there, he had a great time. So, it's super simple, but it's hard to get across to people how effective it is unless you actually do it.
I think you've used this quote before on the podcast, and when I first opened Unique Results 15 years ago, I had a poster up on the wall, and it said, everywhere you go, there you are,
Yeah.
but it had the you are as in the you are, everywhere you go, there you are. And you've used that quote on here before, I know. And it's that whole thing of, if he turns up to a family event and he is embodying and exuding, love and compassion and peace and calm and everything else, it's going to change the energy in the room, and it's going to be different, isn't it? If he turns up anxious, stressed, almost kind of anticipating some kind of fight or fallout or drama, then it kind of, you create that reality, don't you?
So I asked him, and I said, what would you usually, like, what would usually happen? And he's like, I'd usually be going home thinking it's going to be chaos, it's going to be rubbish, it's going to be horrible. And that's exactly what would happen. And I was like, that's because you've just created, you've just created that. You created exactly what you want. So all you did was say you're going to go home with love and compassion. And that's exactly what happened. And that, I put up with the other day, I love this quote, a Carl Jung quote. And it's, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. So, people get, we were talking about this before we started recording, but I talk about, so I've had my guys doing for this year, projecting themselves to December and writing a story about what they're going to be like and who they're going to be, what their goals are and how they've reached them in December. And then we'll start bringing that into January and then February, into the quarters and all of that. And what that starts them doing is thinking about that, and it's got to be emotional. They're writing a story about it. So saying like, this is going to be the greatest Christmas ever, or whatever it is. And they write a story about it, and it doesn't take long, and you can read the story. I haven't read theirs. I've done it for myself, but you should be able to read your story to someone and they can pick out what your goals are for the year. Right. And go, well, that's what you want. That's what you want to achieve. And it's like, yes, that's what that is. And that's who you want to be and all of that. And what that then does is gets you to think about that more. So then you're changing that story, and that is now on a conscious level, rather than, because like 95% of the decisions we make in the day, I've said this before, are subconscious. Your subconscious is just guiding you everywhere, because that's how we're designed, because obviously we follow patterns and things like that. And your brain's just like, if I do this, this happens, and then it's comfortable. If I do this, I don't know what's going to happen. That's scary. And then it puts you on alert. So what we're doing is saying, this is the story, this is where you're going to be, and then bring it forwards with emotion in it and everything that, and then and then the whole process of journaling every day and writing down wins and having your direction review and intention reflection on a day-to-day basis gets you to that point. And then it's fate that you got there, because you're kind of visualizing where you're going to be, and then you'll get there. And I said this before, so this is where I was 10 years ago, a bit out of shape, and I was tired, and I'd been drinking too much, and I'd just been made redundant, and, all of this working long hours and everything like that, because I'd unconsciously got myself there, but I'd been visualizing that anyway, because you're always visualizing something, right? Your brain visualizes things. So people kind of, I find that people struggle with that, but I think that's because I used to struggle with it. And I was like, visualization's a load of crap, because but visualization with intention and action gets you there, because we are designed to look for the worst possible outcome, aren't we? As animals, we're designed to look for the worst possible outcome. So why don't we just look for the best possible outcome and go for that? And then we'll land somewhere in between the two. But where I was, and then anyone who's listening who happens to be struggling or whatever, you've got to that point unconsciously, and you visualized yourself there, sort of thing. So imagine what you could do if you just started to, like I said, just slide things into your lifestyle, and then your lifestyle will then mold around that, and it changes everything. And I've been seeing that in the guys I'm working with. And some of them have been working for years before I even started like looking into this stuff, and they've changed dramatically. One guy's lost like he lost 12 pounds before Christmas, because he'd put on weight, because he was in his head was in chaos, So, and that was basically just going through the behavior change, just slight changes in your lifestyle, and then your lifestyle starts to move around it, and he all of a sudden he's got 4 stone to lose, I think, and he lost 12 pounds. So it's
so he's nearly a quarter of the way there already.
Already.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to happen. He's not going to lose a stone a month because that's not healthy.
Yeah.
But what it does show is that it's not really weight that you're carrying. It's all water retention and just bad habits and stuff like that. If you change those, then all of a sudden it drops off. But it's when people expect that, they go, oh, well, that sounds like a crash diet. So you just do that for another few months and you're sorted. It's like, yeah, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So it's, I just found it really interesting. Doing all this stuff, and the results you get from it are amazing. And I don't know, because I used to, obviously would, selling personal training and all that sort of stuff. It's like, well, that's the thing that you need. And it is, but well, not necessarily personal training, but it's, exercise is the thing that you need. I mean, this goes with the Mark Lewis thing about being average, being above average, right? I've been looking at my phone app recently for the Samsung Health app, because I've got a Samsung phone because I'm one of those guys. Right. Someone's banging outside, so the dog's gone nuts.
Okay.
I've got a Samsung phone, so if there's a health app on it and it counts my steps without me asking, right? I looked at it, and the average number of steps for someone my age, between 40 and 49, is hang on, Sid, shut up. Between 40 and 49 is like 5,000 steps, which is 2 and a bit miles. I think I've worked it out.
I think I saw this post from you, because you said on a really bad day for you, you were still in like the top 6% or something.
So over Christmas, I did 2 days where I didn't do any. I did like 500 steps or something, because one day I was in the car all day driving. The other day I was around visiting people, so I was in the car all day. And even on that week, I was a top 6% of my age group for walking.
Yeah.
And I think that the average is like something less than 2 miles. And that's the average. So there's loads
this
of
is
people
kind
not
of
even
like,
doing that.
it's a bit like what Mark was talking about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where he said this, the condition and the lifestyle of the majority of people at the moment is so poor, so dire, that actually to be above average is a really, really low barrier, if you like, or marker, so it's almost like you actually want to be the average of the person who's actually doing the thing, rather than the average of the whole population, because the average of the whole population is incredibly low, isn't it? For many things, for many things.
So like I say, I put something out about it saying, if you want, I did a video on it the other day, and said, if you want to be in the top, if you want to be better than 95% of people in your age group, in your age between 40 and 49, you need to walk 4.5 miles a day. And there you go. It's as simple as that. I mean,
one of the things I was, again, this might help some people, and it has helped me a little bit as well. And it's what we know, we all know anyway. But one of the things on this podcast as well was they were talking about like rocking and, walking, and basically walking with a pack and stuff like this that they do in the military, obviously all the time. And it's quite, I know Mark Rifkind, who we had on, does a lot of rocking, and it's kind of like quite a popular thing, or tabbing, I think they call it over here. And any kind of exercise, and I certainly find this, and for me, I do spinning, indoor cycling classes and things. I teach them as well. He was saying that you almost have to accept that the first, and it's going to vary depending upon what you're doing, but the first bit of exercise in terms of the session, so it might be, if you're doing strength exercise, it might be the first 2 sets, or if you're doing spinning, it might be the first 5 to 10 minutes, or if you're doing a ruck, it might be the first 2 miles. But the first bit is going to suck a bit, and it's going to feel a bit difficult, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be a bit painful, and physiologically the body's kind of waking up and getting used to doing it. But then you almost hit a point where you feel like you could do this forever, and you feel great, and you feel like you've got to get over that first initial and so one of the things he said was, you kind of just almost have to accept that, but if you know that consciously and you know that experientially as well, because you've done it and you've experienced yourself, you know that, well, the first 2 sets of pull-ups I do are going to feel rubbish, or the first 10 minutes of spinning is going to feel rubbish, or the first people who do a lot of running talk about, it takes the first mile or 2 just to find your stride and just to warm up and just to kind of get into it. But then once you hit that, you feel like you can go on. So I think it's really important, and it's really good to kind of keep that in mind. I know that at the moment in my training that I'm doing that Paul gives me, I'm doing these tricep French presses, these standing barbell French presses. And the first set really hurts my elbows, or it doesn't, I can really feel it in my elbows, yes, the first set. Yeah. And literally if I reacted to that first set, I would say, I'm not doing that today. It's hurting my elbows. But from experience, I know that and I know pain is not good in any, it is not a good thing, but my elbows have been getting a little bit sore. But the second set literally feels 50% better, than the first set. And then the third set feels 50% better again. And then the next set feels great and there's no discomfort at all. So it's almost like I've just I do it, and I know this first set's going to be uncomfortable, but the next set's going to be better. And I'm sure you feel the same when you do your pull-ups and things. You know what I mean? Like the first set is
no. Pull-ups never feel good.
Okay.
Actually, that's not true, because I've got better at them, so I like them now. But
yeah. But oh god, talking about pull-ups and I know I always joke about your wobbly bar of death at home.
Somebody commented on one of my, I put it out as a reel or something. I don't even know how to do that. It went out as a reel, and someone commented saying, "I'm waiting for the bar to break," and I was like, "Oh, thanks very much. So am I."
But I noticed, I saw the other day you went out and you were drying up, because it's outside, obviously.
Oh, it was hammering it down.
You were drying the bar with like a towel or something before you did your set. And I just thought, oh God, that's wobbly and slippery. It's like something out of I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here or something.
Well, a couple of things with that. When I wipe it down, it's actually quite sticky.
Okay.
Because it's not metal. It's like, it's got a coating on it. So that works out quite nicely. But I was out there doing pull-ups in -5 as well, and someone was like, basically, your hands are going to stick to the bar, and I was like, no, because it's not metal. It's got, like I say, it's got a coating on, so the don't.
It's like a nylon or something. Yeah,
it was pretty freezing, I can tell you that. But it was absolutely fine. But yeah, I've got the dog's towel that I wipe it down with and throw it in. Then I do my pull-ups, and then I have to come in and wipe my feet on the towel, so I'm not traipsing it all the way. It's like I'm like the dog. It's almost like he's there, like, I'll do your feet for you. There you go.
Oh dear.
But what was I going to say? What you just said there about, the first set is hard and you've got to get into it and all of that. That can be in, say, if you go running. So someone says it takes the first mile to get into it because they're going to go and do a 10 miler. And you might get people go, I can't run 10 miles. Like, right. It might take the first couple of 100 meters then. Or if you go out walking, it might be the first half a mile or whatever it is. You can apply that to any time frame, can't you? So starting to get in shape for the first 3 months might feel really hard. And then for 6 months after that, it might be fine. And then the 3 months after that, it gets a bit heavier. Say, oh, you've progressed a bit, and then it gets harder. And then you go back and cycle up again. So the first 3 months is like, feels a bit easier, and then it gets harder. I have that all the time in my training. Right now, it feels brilliant because everything's relatively light. But I know, and it's been like that for a couple of months actually. But I know that at some point in the next 2 months, I reckon I'm going to be not hating it, but I'm going to be like, blimey, I knew this was coming. So I know it's coming. That was the other thing I was going to say over Christmas when I switched my days around and did Monday, Tuesday, Friday instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that. I knew that was coming. Everyone knows Christmas is coming. I said Sean had booked the flat we were staying in April. So I knew the dates. So there was no point in me getting there going, oh, we're traveling on a Wednesday. Oh, I'm going to have to miss a session. It's like, no, I knew it was coming for months. So there's always a workaround for this sort of stuff. And once your lifestyle, like I was saying, once your lifestyle starts to fit around the thing rather than fitting the thing into your lifestyle. That's when you start to realize, actually, I'll schedule this in. You know, like one of the guys told me once, he was like, people are coming visit, so I can't get a session in at home. It's like, you can. Well, what will they think? It's like, who gives a shit? I've done pistols in the living room while Sean's mum and dad are sitting on the sofa, and she's like doing something over here, and I'm just doing pistols over there.
Yeah.
Like, it's how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's having that character, having that confidence, and that it's when that we talked about it. I can't remember the exact terminology we used, but it's that, you know, it's when that becomes a part of you, isn't it? It's a part of who you are and what you do, and then it is just a part of who you are and what you do. And it's like, whether that be, you know, training on holiday, or whether that be, you know, walking 10 miles a day and making that happen wherever you go. You know, it's just what you do. One of the things I was going to say as well, just came to mind as you were talking then, was when we said about, you know, that it's going to, you know, the first bit is going to be hard, but then it's going to feel better and you'll be glad you've done it when you've done it, kind of thing. I also find now, being, I'm 45 this year, I would never kind of, and I sometimes, this is this internal conversation that kind of I have in my head, and I'm sure most other people do. I would never decide in the morning whether I was going to train or not based on how I feel as soon as I wake up, because I know some people do that. They kind of wake up in the morning and, oh, that feels a bit tight. Oh, I'm not going to train today, you know, because I know how I feel in the morning now. And I often do, I'm not saying I wake up with crippling pain or anything, but I'll wake up and back might be a bit tight, or this might be a bit tight, or this might, you know, and I know that within about an hour or 2 hours of being awake in the morning, and I've just been up and just been moving around and I'll go to work and maybe I have a couple of coffees and I've moved, and I feel so much different an hour or 2 hours after I've woken up than I do the second I wake up. But I do know that but it's very tempting to kind of make a decision on what you're going to do that day based on how you feel the second you open your eyes or roll out of bed in the morning. And again, that's another thing just from experience, that I know that, yeah, I don't feel like squatting or deadlifting the second I wake up in the morning, but if I get up, if I move around, if I go to work, if I do, you know, just incidental movement, and I have a couple of cups of coffee, I feel a totally different person, you know, 2 hours later, and then I'm kind of ready to go, you know? So it's just kind of knowing that, I think certainly as I say, as we get older collectively, and I'm sure people in their 50s and 60s feel even more than I do, you just have to give your body a chance to wake up and your mind a chance to wake up and go through some simple mobility and just move around. And most of us feel better, I'm sure, mid-morning than we do the second we wake up. I mean, do you, I know you're very mobile and you're very, you know, your mobility is very good and things, but do you feel better kind of an hour or two after you've woken up rather than first thing? Yeah.
So my best days are when I'm training the guys at 7 o'clock in the morning, because I get out of bed at 6 and I do my journaling and stuff like that. And then I have a coffee and then I'm off to see them. And then I come in and train. That's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So Monday, Tuesday, Friday. So Wednesday, Thursday, that doesn't happen. So I still get up, but I'm not moving around as much, maybe. So my training starts a bit, it's not harder. It feels a bit different. I'm a bit tighter, put it that way. Yeah. Because
yours is, you have to have a little bit of a walk, don't you, to get to the park where you train? It's not a huge walk, but was it 10 minutes or something?
Not even that.
Yeah. But even just the action of, you know, walking outside for a little bit and then moving around with the guys, because I notice if I'm doing personal training first thing in the morning and I'm, you know, picking up kettlebells for people and changing the weights on bars, and I'm crouching down, I'm standing up, I'm walking up the stairs, I'm walking down the stairs, you know, I'm kind of just that's what I mean, not really intentional mobility or anything, but just moving my body just frees everything up, you know.
Absolutely.
And that's why, you know, people who are chronically tired, chronically tight, chronically sore, who don't actually move around at all, you know, who sit, especially a lot of people work from home nowadays. And my members, some of them say, God, the days I work from home, sometimes I do, well, like you said, 500 steps in a day or 1,000 steps in a day, and you're just not moving. I mean, that's just a recipe for tightness and soreness and lethargy, isn't it? I think
there's one of my guys I was talking to today who's super fit. He's in his mid-50s. He's been coming to me for the longest, actually. He's been coming to me nearly 8 years since I started in the park anyway. And he's had the odd issue here and there, the odd problem here and there, but it's always like we've always got over it. But he's super strong. He like reps out a 24 kilo bell and presses and everything, and he's mid-50s, no problem. There's hardly anything on him. He cycles a lot. He's very wiry, all that. He does yoga, he does Pilates, and he comes to see me as well. He's got a tight lower back, and it's been like that for a little while. And every time he turns up, he's like, and his kettlebell swing technique changed slightly, and his squats changed slightly. So I was like, right. But I hadn't done anything about it, and I hadn't really made an issue of it or anything like that. We'll just see what happens. But it's been like that for a few months. So I'm like, right. It's not getting any better. Because usually these things just go away. If they turn up out of nowhere, they go away out of nowhere, right? But I was like, it's not getting any better. So let's do something about it. So we're corrected his swing techniques. Like I say corrected, we're altered his swing technique because he was looking like he was compensating. We're altered his squat slightly. But he does a nightly routine before he goes to bed of stretches. So I was like, well, what's your routine? And that was when he was like, oh, I can't remember, because he just does it, right? But he showed me, he does like a few like down dog and pigeon stretch and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, all of those stretches you're doing, your hip flexors are shortened. And you work in an office. And he was working from home all the way through COVID. So, and he said that COVID affected him as well because of like mobility and stuff like that. So I was like, basically your hip flexors aren't getting lengthened ever. And your lower back's paying the price. It looks like. So I just, and he knows mobility and he knows stuff. So I basically just said, right, let's do some hip flexor stuff and do it at home. Add it into your nightly routine. And this is when people say, just do this one thing every day and it'll sort this out. And then just do this one. And you can't do all of the one things every day, can you? And he was like, right, I'll just slip that into my routine then. And then it's all this, I've got to add that to it. And I was like, no, because all the other stuff you're doing isn't working anyway, because it's still tight. So just replace one of those with this. And I can't say whether it's going to work or not. I don't know, because it was today that we talked about it. So I'm like, do it. And don't just do it for like a few days and go, do you know what? My back's still tight. It hasn't worked. I was like, do it for a month, every day, because he does it every day anyway. I was like, just do this thing every day on top, and replace one of the things, slot it into your lifestyle. And we'll see. So, because he's been to see physios, and like I say, he does yoga and Pilates and all that. And I was like, it's not sorting out. So there's something not happening there, because doing all of that and everyone knows what they're talking about, it should go away, right? But it hasn't. So I'm like, right, we'll work on that, because I could see that he was tight in there. Even the way he was standing, he said his back was sore doing squats because of the compression. I went, what do you mean compression? He went, well, standing like that, and he did the thing of like, when people kind of look like they're trying to push the hip forwards, but they're not. They're just extending the lower back. Yeah. So I was like, it's your hips. Your hips are tight. And he said, they have been feeling a bit tight, actually. And I was like, well, just do that then. So I'll let you know in a month.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because it's simple little things like that. When people go, I've been doing all the things. It's like, yeah, but have you been doing the right things? Or have you been doing the things that are going to help that specific thing? Because people can move around as much as they like. But which is good. I'm trying to think of how to say this. It's good. Movement's just good. It's always good, but it can always be better as well, can't it? But if something's not solving the issue the problem that you have, then it's
and it could even be sort of exacerbating it or prolonging it. I've said on this podcast before that I used to do with my back problem. I used to do loads of stretching and mobility and foam rolling and stuff like that. And it wasn't actually till I stopped doing all of that and just kind of let my body settle down and kind of heal and sort of knot itself together and be tight where it needed to be tight and be loose where it needed to be loose, and actually did that through full range of motion strength training, really, like deadlifts and squats and, a movement, then the body kind of works out, well, I need to be tight here and I need to be mobile here, and I'm not just loosening everything off, all the time. Which
all you're doing then is dulling the signal to your central nervous system in everywhere. And then it goes like, right, I need to figure out how to move at the minute because nothing's working.
And I'm sure in some ways, I mean, I don't know if there's any, science behind this, but it just seems like it to me. If you're constantly loose, or, like how things kind of swing one way and then swing the other, if you're constantly loosening everything off all the time, it feels to me like the body is then trying to kind of tighten everything back up again to kind of react against being loosened. And then in some ways you kind of you're creating more of a problem, where there needs to be, a yin and a yin and a yang, and you need to kind of have harmony, the word you used, from Michael Kukowski, there needs to be harmony within the body. And sometimes we go, to one extreme or another extreme, and sometimes you need to let the body find its own way,
Well, Stuart McGill spoke about that, didn't he? And it was like, if you want to be a powerlifter, you've got to be tight, but you're not going to be very mobile. If you want to do yoga, you're going to be very mobile, but not. I'm not saying yoga doesn't build strength.
But you're not going to be.
You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're hyper mobile, you're going to need to do some stability work because your joints are going to be compromised. It's all it's whatever you want. But if you just want to be an average person like me, say, you want to be strong, you want to be flexible, you want to be able to go for long walks and just not basically get in pain going out for any amount of time or whatever, and not get in pain carrying your shopping in, or getting tired walking upstairs, and all just all normal everyday stuff. And I was going to say, after sitting at a desk for 15 years, I was the guy who I was talking about today. So I was like, I need to do this one thing, and I need to do this one thing, and I need to do all this. I need to do like 20 minutes of mobility before I pick anything up and all of that. I don't do any of that now. I do very, very little mobility, to be honest, because I mean, like doing pistol squats, right? The one-legged squats, you need a lot of mobility for that. So I'm adding strength on top of the mobility and making sure I do full range of motion. And actually it's fine. Yeah. Presses, I've got no problem putting my arm over my head, apart from my left side at the minute, because I fell on my ribs, like I was telling you earlier. But other than that, it's fine. Pull-ups again. Pull-ups is hanging. Dan John talks about hanging a lot these days. It's hanging, so you've got your arms above your head. And then if you're pulling up and you're getting your chest to the bar, mobility is going to be fine there.
It's like how much, it's like anything, isn't it? It's like how much mobility do you need? How much strength do you need?
Exactly. Do I need more? So one of my guys actually was quite funny, because we were talking about program jumping and stuff. One of my online guys, and he said he goes, I'll tell you, he goes, full disclosure, he goes, last week I bought How to Do the Splits program for like 20 quid off somebody on YouTube or something like that. And I looked at him, he goes, I know. He goes, I don't need to be able to do the splits. Why do I need to be able to do the splits? He's like a 44-year-old fella who doesn't need to be able to do the split. He's like, well, at the time, I just thought it would be cool. And then actually, as soon as I bought it, I was like, what do I need that for? Because he's doing, he wants to press the 40-kilo bell. He's doing pistol squats, which he has never been able to do. All of that stuff. So I didn't even say anything, because he'd already answered his own. It's
like one of those impulse purchases, like late at night on like an infomercial or something like that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It feels like a good idea at the time, and then
he said he was having a moment of weakness, and he listens to the podcast actually. So, but no, I just thought it was hilarious, because years ago I would have felt threatened by that. Like, no, you need to stay with me and do what I'm telling you. And it's like, if you want to do the splits, I'm not your man. That's fine.
Yeah.
But why? But the whole thing is why? Why?
Deary me. Right. I think we'll wrap up there. That's been a really good conversation, touching base and kind of catching up on how the year has started for us both, and for our clients and members and the people that we work with. So no, that's fantastic. Next week we will be back with Steve Bush, I think, next week. who, that is right, isn't it? I'm getting my orders right. Yeah,
yes,
with Steve, who's going to be joining us. Really interesting guy, talking all about some real extreme kind of lifestyle change and weight loss journey that is going to be a really interesting conversation, I think. So we'll be back next week with that. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being with us all through 2022 and so far in 2023. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a message, leave a review as well. And if you are if you have anyone that you know in your family, any colleagues, any friends that you feel may benefit from some of this material that we've been talking about, or the podcast in general, please do send them a link or point them in our general direction. Any final sign-offs, Pete, or anything before we close?
I've got one. I've got one that I wrote down here just because we're in podcast land, right? So New Year was ages ago, obviously, but it wasn't. Anyway, you know those things that have you seen people saying, if you start this film at 10:38 and 51 seconds?
Yeah.
Every time I read one of those, it was like, if you start this film at 10:38 and 51 seconds, you'll still be asleep before midnight. That's the way I was looking at it on that evening. But anyway, there you go.
I was in bed by about 9:30, I think, on New Year's. I was nice early night. Okay, excellent. So thank you very much, guys. We will see you next week. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.